Hello, everyone, and welcome into the Guilty as Charged podcast. We are joining you live now after the Chargers lose 17-10 to the Kansas City Chiefs, marking the 11th time in a row the Chargers have lost at home to the Chiefs, which is obviously not great. The score indicates it was close, and it was close, but there were many frustrations along the way. So let's talk about those. I think we'll start with the negatives here first, and then, of course, talk about the positives, which is mostly just the defense. Alex, that was not a fun watch on offense. I'm guessing that's where we'd like to start today. Your thoughts on what happened and what you saw on offense today?
Yeah, it just feels frustrating to piss away a game against the Chiefs because of the offense. And look, I know there were a lot of challenges going in today. We can talk about the state of the offensive line heading into this one. Obviously, just down bodies across the board. But at some point, they had moments in this game where they could have taken advantage and just kind of routinely got in their own way. Obviously the run game was always kind of going to be tough sledding, but they started drives by just always running on first down with JK or Gus and what was always going to be a negative play based on how they set it up. And so that just felt like it consistently set them back. We talk about the holding penalties. Every penalty you can imagine called today on the offense. I don't even know what the official number is. But that's what's going to happen when you're playing a bunch of guys that are not, at their natural positions on this week of preparation. And then in addition to the offensive line, I just felt like going into this game, Greg Roman kind of had to do more to help them out, right? Particularly, I mentioned Sam Mustipher. There's, a sequence in that final offensive drive for the Chargers where he's lined up versus Chris Jones 2 or 3 straight times one-on-one. The guy that just came off of the practice squad, yesterday he was elevated, and this was the first week he really practiced with the first string offense. I don't even know if Trey Pipkins was healthy if you leave him one-on-one versus Chris Jones. And so them doing that is just the offensive line was bad today, but it was also bad because of how they called their protections, and the scheme just looked disoriented. That was just kind of one example of things we saw throughout the game with the offensive line. But that's where this really starts for me. And you talk about the play calling, that 4th and goal where, Harbaugh, we'll get to the timeout usage in a bit. But, then Greg Roman going out of shotgun when you have to pick up, what was it, 2 yards that ended up being on the after
1.5.
Yeah, 1.5 after that, Palmer fell down. A number of shotgun plays too, where you don't have the offensive line to protect your quarterback, whose ankle is being held together by scotch tape and surgical tape and God knows whatever concoctions are in there. So it's just that frustrated me too. Even the play, when they were backed up all the way on the goal line, Greg Roman also did 2 or 3 plays directly out of the shotgun there, and Herbert luckily gets the ball away on one of them, and it ends up not being a safety. But I even thought that was pretty frustrating and could have gotten Herbert killed too. So I don't know, man. When you have a winnable game against this team, we can talk about Harbaugh, obviously, the timeout usage and being left with one when the Chiefs did pick up, that first down and essentially the game being over because of how Harbaugh burnt the timeout on the Watson catch, which was obviously a catch, and then the challenge, not challenging the Palmer spot and taking the timeout. So that didn't help, but I felt pretty underwhelmed by the offensive game plan today, and it felt like every time they could get something going, they kind of went away from it, right? Even that play that Ladd has in the slot, that's that 38-yard completion, immediately they throw him back outside. I'm pretty sure the very next play. Yeah. And so just moments like that too, where you get in the way of your own momentum. So I don't know. I felt that we could talk about a lot of things in this game, but just how unprepared the offense looked even acknowledging the non-optimal circumstances, it's tough to watch.
Yeah, I mean, we are certainly acknowledging here while discussing the difficulties that Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater were not playing, and Justin Herbert was obviously hurt. You can throw in no DJ Chark too, and Palmer coming back from injury, fine. Like we are acknowledging that. I didn't expect an offensive juggernaut out there on the field today, but what I expected and was hoping for is that the simpler things, the Greg Roman staples, the offensive line play, the Harbaugh stuff, they would get that right, or at least as best as they could. And it was, especially in that first half, 1 or 2 pre-snap or offensive penalties per drive. That, I mean, you combine that with them, like you mentioned, on first down, they run, they get 1 or 2, then it's a false start, or then it's a hold, or legal hands to the face. So it's, then it's 2nd and 14 or 2nd and 20, like whatever it ended up being. It was a recipe for disaster. And at this point, I want to focus more on the offensive line, in particular the interior, because it's now just not a one game thing. Yes, we're talking about this game against the Chiefs, but this is clearly a multi-week thing that was awful week 1, was okay week 2 against a Panthers defense that did not have their best interior player, and then rough last week and really bad this week. Again, not entirely all their fault. Did I expect Sam Mustipher to have a great game against Chris Jones? Nope. But I felt like there was so much missing, and it just felt like watching them, and now having watched them for several games, it's an offensive ecosystem issue. It's everything that's going into this, from the personnel to the play calling, the protection plan. Everything is off right now for the Chargers, where nothing was able to help out Herbert or this offense, push the ball in the passing game. They opened the game phenomenally. I thought the opening script, much like, kind of wasn't in the first half of last week, I thought they really, started well, and they started pretty strong. And I kind of figured they would fall off because Herbert's going to take some hits. Spags is going to figure it out. But it was so disappointing to watch this offense. And it just really feels like right now, the hot seat, not that Greg Roman's going to be fired midseason or anything. He's not. But the heat is on, because right now this entire ecosystem does not look good, to the point now where we have Justin Herbert on the sideline smashing his helmet against the bench. Like, he was unhappy today. And I'm sure part of that is also pain, right? He's, kind of angry through the pain. But he looked very frustrated. And that guy is out there fighting. What a total warrior, out there. People can mention the plays he might have missed. He also saved the offense 7 other times where he could have taken it. Like Taylor Heineke, Easton Stick, they're sacked 5 more times today. They throw plenty more interceptions today. And Herbert just bailed them out because he was somehow able to move on one good ankle. So, yeah, Greg Roman, the whole offensive ecosystem was not great today. I didn't see anything outside of the first quarter where I really thought, okay, like, look, even though there's injuries, even though this team's down, this offense is gonna figure it out. And the Chiefs, now Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, different story. Look, they lost Rashee Rice pretty much on like the first snap of the game, or the third snap of the game, whatever it was, for them. He barely played. When he did the second series, friendly fire, he got hurt. They obviously didn't have Hollywood Brown, no Isaiah Pacheco. Now, that's not Joe Alt and Rashawn Slater being out, but that's a good part of your offense. That's a great part of your offense. The Chiefs figured it out enough where they're able to get the win in the end there. So, again, that is Andy Reid, so it's a different story. But, yeah, just disappointing from the offense overall.
Yeah. We were messaging in our chat today this morning, and I saw Travis Kelce's line, and it said over under 47.5, and no Derwin James. Unfortunately, Mahomes kind of went after it, again and again, and caught the Chargers defense off guard. Not the worst game, certainly, that we've ever seen them have against Kelce. A couple nice moments, like the AJ Finley, play it on third down there too. But it felt like there were just a couple backbreaking third downs in this game that sometimes the Chiefs didn't end up scoring on, which is the shocking thing. But yeah, when it just felt like it was kind of inevitable for some of the defense to have that moments because of how the offense was performing, right? If you keep the defense out there and they continue having to get stop after stop after stop, eventually by the end of the game, as we saw against, Pittsburgh as well, they're going to be gassed. And so, for all the electricity you have at the beginning of the game with the defense, which was great, I just feel like this is the same thing that we saw against Pittsburgh.
Yeah, no, it basically was. I don't know if you're starting to see some of the press conference stuff come in. It sounds like at least Herbert is not significantly worse off. Definitely took some hits, came up limping, was limping walking in, to the game in his sweats.
Right.
But it seemed like overall he came out okay, all things considered. So that's not bad. But yeah, offense not great. I really can't find much to discuss on the offense. I guess we can talk about Ladd McConkey, but looking at the box score, looking at this rushing attack, started off strong, of course, has not been great over the last 2 weeks. J.K. Dobbins not hitting 150 yards per game, not exactly 7.5 yards per carry. This today was, I think, his worst output. So Dobbins, 14 carries, 32 yards, 2.3 yards per carry. Gus Edwards, kind of more involved in some short yardage stuff. I think actually his best outing, but 6 carries for 19 yards, 3.2 yards per carry. I am still surprised at the distribution of runs versus pass. 27 passes for Herbert, only 20 runs by the running backs. Still a bit surprised there given the pass protection issues and Herbert's injury.
Yeah, I mean, you could also say the other side of that is they don't have an interior that can properly run block right now, for sure. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm just a little perplexed about what to think of the run game in general right now, and we've been sort of talking about it where we said after the first 2 weeks, like, hey, this Dobbins thing is great while it's happening, but eventually he's not going to get 130 yards every game. And we talked about it because it was just always unsustainable. And for him to create as many opportunities as he was creating without the run blocking playing that well, and at some point that was going to wear off. And it has. I don't think this was Dobbins' best game. Obviously, I don't think it was necessarily like a terrible game for him either. Aside from the drop, got to catch that. But then I'm perplexed about the Gus Edwards thing because they give him 18 carries against the Panthers. Apparently didn't like what they saw. They give him 3 carries the next week against the Steelers, and now you said he was at 6 carries for 19 yards today.
Yeah.
So I'm just kind of perplexed as to what we're doing there because right now it doesn't feel like they have an RB2. And the way that they've talked about wanting to establish the run for a game that was either tied or within one score. Other than JK, it doesn't feel like they have a running back that they can rely upon. And so I don't know what they want to do. I've already beat the Vidal bit to the death in the ground, but I just think at some point, like, if you're not going to trust Edwards and Dobbins' production has fallen back down to earth a little bit, I just feel like you have to try something different a little bit when Herbert's obviously in the state that he is, and the offensive line is in the state that it is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree there. They finally brought in Haskins for, I think, his only snap of the game on the most critical third down of the game.
Yeah.
Which is a bit, I guess, I don't know if Dobbins or Edwards, they were gassed. I don't know if they were hurt, so they had to get in Haskins there on third down, but that was certainly a surprise there. I do want to switch over to the defense before we lose everyone to pure pessimism here. Unless you want to talk about the Harbaugh stuff first while we're still kind of on the negatives.
Oh, yeah. I mean, just game management was pretty weird from him. The Watson stuff, I mean, I watched every angle from the television, and Steven watched every angle from inside the stadium. And we all were like, that's a catch. I don't know what he's challenging. And then, the timeout, instead of challenging the Palmer play, when you could have just thrown a, challenge flag there and you would have lost the timeout anyway. That doesn't get reviewed. I'm not sure if that challenge would have been successful. Do you gain a half a yard? Who knows? But yeah, just very weird stuff from him today, especially as seasoned as Harbaugh is, obviously this return to the NFL is recent, but this is not his first stint in the NFL. Obviously, he's been around for years. So it was just weird to see him play things that way. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say than that, other than I do feel like he, in those moments, certainly turned the games with some decision making. By the way, like I said on social media, I think, the decision to go for it on fourth down was fine. The decision to then immediately run a play out of shotgun again on 4th and 1.5, I have some qualms with. Of course, we already touched on Roman. But yeah, just weird decision making.
Yeah, I disagree with Blaine that they didn't lose because of not having those timeouts. Now, of course, they didn't lose because of not having those timeouts, right. But when it's 2:38 or whatever it was left in the fourth quarter, and the Chiefs can just run it out with 2:38 left in the fourth quarter, that's problematic.
And just as soon as Worthy picks up that first down, the game's over, right? So, but if you had another, not saying they certainly would have won anyway, but whatever situation it is against the Chiefs, if you play this game out 100 times, in all of those scenarios, you want more than one timeout with 3 minutes left. And so when you burn your, second timeout with 12 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, it's tough.
Yeah. I'll do a couple of super chats real quick, and then we'll get to the defense, which I do want to talk about and praise today. So from Joseph Levine, this offensive performance was putrid, unacceptable. In addition to the line and penalties, I believe these receivers are not separating at all. McConkey can separate. Palmer was really a non-factor most of the game, working back from an injury. Quentin Johnson struggled today for sure. He had the one really good first down on the slant, but mostly not much there. And him as the boundary guy, as that X, is just not really going to work for him.
Yeah, I saw the one where QJ ends up like batting it up in the air, and like that that became like a thing. I think there was a sequence there where people were arguing on Twitter as to could it be DPI, could it be holding or something like that. But if you don't establish your position as a receiver on the route, and I think QJ took a couple bad positions and steps today, like they're not going to give you those calls. And so that was a little weird to watch, but also I'm not surprised, I guess, because we haven't seen QJ really tested physically this year, right? We've seen him certainly be a better route runner. I mean, he was tied with Marvin Harrison Jr. in yards per route run entering this game. That number will probably come down, but we had seen some progress with him there. But I think the reason you want a DJ Chark on the field is because he's really the only receiver they have that can physically like go up for contested catches when Herbert needs it, because they don't have another guy right now that can do that.
No, they don't, unfortunately. Would have hoped maybe that could have been Palmer, but he hasn't been out there, so not great. NSN woke up to a loss, yet moral victory that it wasn't 3-45. Am I right? Always tricky, that there is the positive of, well, they didn't get blown out today. On the other hand, they lost. So
right,
and you have to watch. Well, we had to watch the entire game. NSN just woke up. Wasn't fun.
Yeah, I think if it was 45-3, I would have been like, well, get them next time. Everyone was decimated, but it was the fact that everyone was dead and they had a chance to win that makes it disappointing, I guess.
Yeah, definitely.
So
next one from Cameron. Do we think the staff has anyone on the headset saying when to challenge or not? Either that failed, Harbaugh ignored, or they don't have it. I think I want to say Trestman was supposed to be involved with some of these things.
Trestman is who, as far as we know, is handling a lot of the game management scenarios. Not that I think that was entirely on him. I also wonder if the way that drive was going, if like Harbaugh just like wanted to maybe challenge that in the way of just like getting the defense like a breather or something. I don't know. That's possible. Either way, whatever rationale you lead you to get to the decision, it would have been bad.
Yeah. Even if Trestman said, hey, you should challenge that. I mean, Harbaugh doesn't have to listen to anybody. Like,
again,
Harbaugh will not. Yeah.
Steven was in the stadium and saw every replay and was like, yeah, that's a catch. So it's like,
no, I had already moved on to the next play in my mind. So I was surprised.
I don't know.
But thank you, Mom, for the super sticker. We were going to go today, and then just life happens and we couldn't make it. Steven is at the game right now. I wanted to message him so bad after the Chargers were up 10-0 and just be like, dude, just wait till the fourth quarter. But he got the full Chiefs Chargers home experience, which again would have been my 11th time in a row watching them lose at home. Finally, from Cool Runnings for the $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Herbert's first loss when the defense allows less than 20 points. ... on to the bye. Yep. So there was that whole streak of Herbert would never lose and has not lost when the defense allows fewer than 20 points. That ends today, which really speaks to, the injuries, of course, and then the offense. So, all right, let's talk about the defense. I do want to talk about this defense because if you told me the Chiefs only scored 17 points on 11 drives, I would have guessed the Chargers still maybe lost that game for some reason, but they did a really good job on defense, obviously. 17 points, 11 drives is fantastic. I thought outside of the blown coverage, which wasn't on Christian Fulton, he was outside. It was on the safety. Could he have gotten more depth? Maybe, but that entire inside was up to Alohi Gilman, who was just staring at Mahomes. And somehow you let the fastest receiver in football behind you. But other than that, the defense played awesome. And they did it with no help from their offense. And I want to get into this later too. No help from their special teams.
Yeah, I mean, you ultimately, I think anytime, like you said, you hold the Chiefs to 17, you can't complain. And in most of those scenarios, that's enough to beat the Chiefs in recent years. Obviously, the Chargers had their own offensive issues today. But yeah, I thought the pass rush was pretty consistently disrupting Mahomes, even if it wasn't resulting in a ton of sacks, forcing him into situations where, yeah, they had to throw it away. I tweeted about this moment, but there was a moment where the Chiefs had to settle for the field goal, and it was 10-7, where Mahomes is trying to run for the first down, and like every time Mahomes has run on third down in human history, he picks it up, and somehow they get a stop there, and hold them to a field goal. I was like, oh my god, that was a low key unbelievable moment, but. Yeah, I mean, I think they did everything you asked. And like I said earlier, it's a stress test of, kind of what the offense has put them through the last 2 weeks in terms of time of possession and in terms of, losing that, I don't know. I actually don't know if they lost time of possession today. I don't know. But, when you're on the field for so long after the offense can't put up points, that's what's going to happen. So, yeah, no, I mean, ultimately good defensive performances. I thought AJ Finley played pretty well in some spots after, essentially being put in this position because Derwin James was not there. Mm-hmm. Joey Bosa, also, the loss of him, I questioned, I guess, how much they would really get some help from Bud Dupree and Thule, and they ultimately stepped up pretty well on a couple big plays, a couple pass knockdowns by Puna Ford. I think, was it
Thule?
Bud? Mac. Yeah, Thule got one, Mac got one. So active defense, and overall thought it was a pretty good performance, all things considered. Even Minter dialing up some stuff early, like that the Troy Dye and Tarheeb Still disguised look that got Mahomes to take a sack. So when you can do stuff like that, again, the defense puts you in a position to win.
Yeah, no, they played awesome. Even if you look at the numbers and you see, 245 passing yards from Mahomes. Kareem Hunt, hello, didn't even realize you were on the Chiefs until yesterday. 4.9 yards per carry. All of that, you could look at that and say, not that great. But the score is the score, and 17 points is 17 points.
Right.
They really made it difficult for the Chiefs. Some of that was self-inflicted, of course. The fumble, good job by Thule, obviously. I don't know where Mahomes was going on that interception. But, hey, the defense played well overall. And this was the official, I think, test. Granted, they didn't, no Hollywood Brown, no Rashee Rice, no Isaiah Pacheco. So those things definitely help. And they, two of them might be there for the next matchup. We'll see about Rice. But we were waiting for this one against Andy, not Justin Fields, not, Arthur Smith, not Bryce Young, not Gardner Minshew and Luke Getsy, but Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. And honestly, overall, given the circumstances, no Derwin, no Joey, either they've played a heck of a game. So really got to credit this defense. I've been waiting to praise them, officially overall. But this scheme works. This scheme's awesome. Jesse Minter is awesome. He's earning every bit of his paycheck. He is right now the best coach, overall of the three coordinators. He's overperforming. Like, he's playing phenomenal, and he's doing it with not everybody being either there or being the greatest players ever, although they might be performing like it. Like Puna Ford, Otito Agbonia deserve a ton of credit. Puna Ford, I think in particular, for being an inexpensive hire who's just playing out of his mind right now. When he is dropping back and is able to tackle Mahomes on a scramble to bring up fourth down, like just stuff like that is so special. He's playing awesome. So the defense, I've been waiting. They played awesome today. Jesse Minter's fantastic, and I truly underestimated Minter and what he could do this early with the Chargers.
Yeah, no, I think you mentioned Puna Ford, and I've been shocked by how he's played through 4 weeks. I certainly did not think that he had the ability to kind of turn the clock back to 2020. Puna Ford just being a consistent, disruptive defensive presence, and he's done all of that and more. Otito's obviously taken a step, and I really feel I felt confident going into this game as far as the defensive line is concerned, even without Bosa, just because of what we had seen, for throughout the first 3 weeks, and Minter finding sort of these unique ways to dial up pass pressure. Saw it again today. So it felt like, especially without Joey, without Derwin, he was up to the task against, obviously not a Chiefs offense that has had it together this season in the way that we have, become accustomed to. But it's still, Mahomes, it's Kelsey, it's Reed. So I think you take that performance from Minter any day of the week. And a lot of guys stepped up today when the team was shorthanded.
Yeah, no, they're fantastic. I don't really have anything negative to say about them. Sure, they gave up 17 points. Sure, it wasn't perfect. I'll take that performance all game long, all day long. That was fantastic. I now want to go to the special teams unit, and in particular, Darius Davis. J.K. Scott's been hit or miss, and we saw that today. They didn't have Dean Leonard, they didn't have Jaw Taylor, but it wasn't a coverage issue today, I don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
It was, and now has been, several games of Darius Davis making either questionable decisions or decisions that led to poor outcomes. So whether it's just, a bad luck thing or a bad decision thing, I think it's been a bit of both. And Darius Davis, it's like every time, whatever decision he makes, it's been incorrect. And that's really costing this team right now.
Yeah, so I don't know. The Darius Davis thing is perplexing. They put him on a hamstring on the injury report this week. And it felt like watching the first 3 games in particular, and we were sort of just noting this whenever we watched Darius Davis, compared to what we saw in the preseason when, he took that carry against Dallas. Like, he just looked visibly slow. And so when I saw him pop up on the injury report with a hamstring injury this week, I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Then they signed Jalen Reagor, and I'm like, past how I feel about Jalen Reagor as a person, I was like, okay, we'll see. Is he going to return? Is it going to be McConkey? And then they downgrade Darius Davis on Thursday, so I'm thinking, oh, he's not playing. And then they just sort of went, back to, okay, well, no, actually, Darius Davis is going to play. He's questionable. And he's just like, I think part of it is he's clearly not healthy. And then part of it is the decisions he's making. And I think, you talk about the one on the 5-yard line, which, certainly cost the Chargers some field position. And I just feel like there's a certain hesitance with him that we did not see last year. And I feel like some of it is health related. But even some of it in like week 1, there's a play on all 22 where he against the Raiders had a hole right open to run through and chooses actively not to run through a hole where he probably could have had a touchdown. So that the running not being great, the fielding not being great, it's costed the Chargers field position, and it hurts extra, especially in this game when the offense is as depleted as it is, and you need to get every yard you can. So yeah, just a little disappointing from him today. I mean, how do we feel about J.K. Scott?
It's like he's solid, and then there's that play where you go, oh, geez.
Right.
And it's just always once, maybe every other game, there's a punt that's, I mean, that punt from, granted, he is in the back of the end zone. I don't expect a 70-yard bomb there, but that thing bounced at the 35, and we're just lucky that it bounced all the way across the 50 or whatever it was, and then Simi Fehoko made a great tackle. Like, that was an awful punt. There's one of those per game. He's never been the standout for the special teams. It's always been Josh Harris, of course, Cameron Dicker, and it was Darius Davis. And J.K. Scott was just it worked. The operation worked with him. We never expected him to be great, but yeah, a little frustrating sometimes.
Yeah, it's a very weird eval because he still is getting hang time, but I feel like the ball's just not even going maybe as deep as it used to. And obviously he's never been a distance punter. But against the Chiefs, when the Chiefs are consistently, starting drives on the, 35 to 50 yard line, like eventually at some point that becomes unsustainable. So yeah, I don't know what they're going to do with him. I assume he's still kind of the starting punter, but clearly who was it that they tried out a couple weeks ago? I can't remember the name off the top of my head, but apparently per Popper, they were working out left-handed punters in order to prepare for Matt Araiza today, and so left-handed punter, left-footed punters. I don't know. Yeah, my brain's a mess right now.
Might have been left-handed. I don't
know. But yeah, so I just thought it was weird performance from him these last couple games, and then Darius Davis being kind of a non-starter is just surprising after how good of a returner he was last year.
Yeah. Okay, so that's special teams. We talked about defense. We talked about offense. I'll throw out, I don't agree with these based on the way they're currently up for Pro Football Focus. The pressures allowed: Zion with 4, Sam Mustipher with only 2, which is basically where I say I think this is BS. Collier with 2, Haskins with 1, Disley with 1, Dobbins with 1, Pipkins with 1, somehow Bradley Bozeman with 0. I don't know. I'm not going to put any stock into that. Any thoughts on that?
No, I don't know. Like, it was how did we feel about Salyer today? Like, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was the worst game for him.
It started rough. He had the penalty. Then Chris Jones beat him off the left side. I don't remember it being as much of an issue after that.
No.
So I think, all 22 pending, right? It really just felt like Sam Mustipher. Basically had the entire second half. Right.
But again, like this is where like people will be like, oh, well, that's on the offensive line. But I'm like, you just called up a practice squad guy, 2 days, 2 days ago, so I think that falls on Greg Roman, A, to get this line, kind of prepared to play, and then B, like just playing situational stuff. Like you have to like help out on Chris Jones when you have this guy there. And it's just like make, and that will say, okay, well, that frees up a rush for somebody else, but make someone else beat you. Make someone else beat you that's not Chris Jones. And so I just felt like, particularly, over and over again, that was what the fourth quarter was. And Spags and Chris Jones, they're going to take that every time. So again, not an easy situation to prepare for, because certainly every solution you can have on offense is going to have its drawback. But I just felt like the Chargers weren't even like really trying for solutions at a certain point in regards to the offensive line. And that just felt like it stemmed from bad preparation.
Yeah. I honestly have no idea what happened to Jordan McFadden. He was their fullback in camp, and then he wasn't. Now it's Matlock, which is a very boomer bust kind of thing now.
And then there's I have no idea what happened to Foster Sorrell either. Like who Greg Roman called at his press conference, I think on Thursday, and was like, oh, that guy's ambidextrous. Like he can, play the left or the right side of the offensive line and might have to. And, again, I'm not saying the preseason is like going against Chris Jones, but we saw him, be decently successful at a number of spots on the offensive line. So I was a little bit surprised they went with Mustafa over Foster Sorrell, to be honest. Not saying that would have made a difference. Maybe that's just slipping out, whatever Mustafa's official pressure count ends up being for, those pressures on Sorrell. But again, I thought the personnel part of this the whole week just never quite made sense to me.
Yeah, as John points out, it wasn't just McFadden. It was McFadden, Serrell, Hymas. No one's playing right guard, and it's Mustafa. Granted, I have not internally scouted Sam Mustafa.
Right.
I don't know what was on film or statistically, and I'm obviously not there at practice, so maybe I'm missing something. But it really felt like the shuffling of the offensive line led to so many first half, timing issues, miscommunication issues, that it felt like, and Steven was very much so against a lot of the shuffling. Like, if you just kept some guys at their natural spots, maybe would have had fewer than, I think it ended up with 9 accepted penalties overall. I think 7 or 8 on offense, and probably a couple more decline there too. So yeah, not beautiful. So I think that's mostly where we'll wrap up today. I don't see any other super chats. Alex, any final thoughts after this 17-10 loss to the Chiefs?
Yeah, not an end of the world loss, especially considering what the circumstances were. I'm happy, pending further investigation, that Herbert's ankle seems to be okay. Obviously, it was very, very gimpy on it today. It was very obvious from the get-go. So hopefully he has avoided any further damage. But bye week, get healthy. At least try to get one of Alter Slater back, and then I think you're kind of in a decent position again. Obviously, would help to get Derwin James back. Who'll be back after his suspension. Joey Bosa, we'll see. So yeah, this is a much needed bye week, for a team that I think people were a little too high on after week 2, when things would start to regress a little bit, either due to some unsustainability or injuries. And now the Chargers, 2 weeks in a row, have gotten punched in the mouth, and we will see how they respond in Denver, which is not an easy win. That has been a house of horrors for as long as we've had this podcast. From us not remembering to record the Drew Lock podcast, so we did it twice. To now, we still haven't won in Denver. So that's going to be an interesting game, and got to win that one. Start out the bye strong, and I hope to see a more coherent offensive approach, regardless of who is playing and who is not, the next time the Chargers suit up.
Yep, I completely agree. This is a bye week at a very good time for the Chargers. Last thing before we go, Adam Schefter's reporting that Rashee Rice is feared to have suffered a torn ACL in this game, which obviously that sucks no matter what. Like, a lot of stuff going on with Rashee Rice, of course. Still, that sucks, especially on our friendly fire play. That does give the Chargers some hope moving forward. That's their best pass catcher. He's been one of the best receivers in football to start the season. So there's that. So no Hollywood Brown, no Pacheco for 8 more weeks.
They're going to trade for Amari Cooper, aren't they?
Correct. The Chiefs are probably going to make a move to trade for somebody or Hopkins or whatever, just because why not? So that's that. Anywho, that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I know it's never fun after a loss, but we're here. You guys have been here. I appreciate it. Take care, guys. And as always, Bolt up.